Hey, this is Robert Plank from marketeroftheday.com, and I want to show you a couple of easy data entry hacks that I almost guarantee you're not using that are really useful, especially if you're dealing with files and if you're having to copy a lot of things from one to the other. These are some things that have helped me so much. And so here's the situation is we have a lot of files in here and we want to do some manipulation and maybe dump files into a spreadsheet and do some kind of a mass renaming or just somehow get a list of these file names. And this was a problem for me up until I was about 16 or 17. How do I just really quickly grab a file name? Well, here's the first trick is that normally if you want to just get one file name, you're like, well, do I rename it? Well, yes. And the shortcut key is F2. And my trick for so many years has been you click on the file name. Like, I'm not going to type in Rothsting chauffeur, but you type F2, and now it is renaming, but you need to be careful not to rename, and then Control C to copy the file name, and that's how you easily get one single file name. This is the equivalent of right-clicking a file and going to rename, right-clicking again, and then going to copy, and then just clicking away and not actually renaming, but the keyboard shortcut is F2, Control C, and then you can go and paste that wherever you want. Trick number two is if you need to do this for a lot of files, the solution is to use the commands line prompt in order to list files in a directory. You use what's called a switch. You type /B in order to just list the file name, and then you do what's called a pipe character. I might be using that term incorrectly, but you use the greater than symbol to then save that output into a file. And that's a lot of things combined, but I do this so that way it makes some sense. And let me show you what I do. So I go to I'm ready to go to my starts button here, and I do Windows key R to bring up the command prompt. I type in CMD to bring this command prompt up. And then what we'll do when we're in this command prompt is I will go and browse and type in CD and all this to get into the folder that I want. And if I did a dir in this folder, it would output all these file names and dates and things that I do not want. But what I want to do instead is do dir space /B. And you see how this just lists the files. And I want to do dir /B and then a greater than and then list.txt. And here's what happens here is now it does this list of just the file names, but then it dumps it into this, and I'll just close that down, list.txt file. So this is interesting, right? Because now you can grab all the files or grab the ones that you want and use them in spreadsheet or whatever purposes, but it gets even better for this third and final tip, which is really going down the geek rabbit hole, which is where we'll use we'll use a tool called EditPlus, and we'll use a tool called regular expressions, which it's a kind of like search and replace, but fancier, and we can say to remove things from the end of a file or add things to the end or the beginning of a file. And this is really going to go into geek land, but I'll just show you how this is done. We right click this file, and I've installed this program called EditPlus. I believe it's $35 and has a free trial. And I want to turn all of these into special tasks here. So what I'll do is I'll delete what I'm not using, and I want to do two things. I want to take the end of this off. I want to take the M4A off at the end, and I want to add some specific text at the beginning. And I don't want to do that. And what if I had hundreds of files, or I don't want to do this for 14 files? And 14 files. Is that correct? 14 files. And so what I'll do here is I'll do a search and replace, and I want to do this .m4a at the end, but I want to make sure it's just at the end there, so I do a $sign, and this means that if we see .m4a at the end, then we'll replace it with nothingness, and here we'll do a backslash, and then we'll click on this regular expression, And basically, there's all kinds of fancy things with this, but what you can do is you can use a dollar sign to represent the end of a line, and then the caret character, that thing, the hat, to represent the beginning of a line. But anyways, this gobbledygook will take dot M4A off the end of all these. So I'll click on replace all. Cool. And then I want to do something here where I want to put at the end of the file, I want to put a comma and a space for reasons I don't feel like explaining, but I'll say dollar sign, and this means at the ends we'll place a comma and a space. Replace all. Cool. That was there already. And then what I want to do is I want to put some special text at the beginning of each line. And what we want to do is put the hat character, and I'll copy this other text and put that at the beginning. Keep this as a regular expression. Replace all. Cool. And then I'm going to do something. And so just again, for reasons I don't want to go into, I need to put the length or the number of minutes of each of these files in this list. And so what I've done here is I've listed the files, and instead of having a list view, I right-clicked and said View Details, and then right-clicked and undone some of these columns and made sure to add the length column. That way I can see number of minutes of each of these. And what we'll do here is I'm just filling in. There's filling in these entries here because I'm using them to name tasks, if you must know. And 30, I think this is 30. I'm trying to keep up on their screen. So 249 is 26. 28, 27. And then what I want to do is at the end of these have the word minutes, because there's a certain naming scheme I'm using based on all these file names. And I'll do another search and replace the dollar sign at the end with space minutes. Do a regular expression. Boom. And what I'm doing with these is I'm assigning some tasks for workers, and what I can do now is I can take all of these 14 entries I created and go into my task assignment system and say add task, and then paste all of these entries and assign them out as I please, without having to do all this retyping, without having to do all this copying, without having to do all this data entry and data editing. I used the command line, dumped to a file, and used regular expressions in EditPlus. And to recap really quick, to really easily copy out one file name, you click on it, you do an F2, you do a Control C, you don't rename. That's how you quickly get a file name. You can use the commands prompt and do a dir/b greater than symbol and then the name of the file you are outputting to, and that gives you a list that you can work with in something like Notepad. But what is an even more of a power tool is this tool called EditPlus, where you can do a search and replace and click this regular expression checkbox. And you might have to do some trial and error if you're new at this, but the biggest shortcut, it's not the entire thing, but a big shortcut is that a shift number 6, which is the hat or caret, represents the beginning of a line, and then a shift 4 or dollar sign represents the end of a line. I hope that helps if you are dealing with some kind of data entry. I'm Robert Plank from marketeroftheday.com. Talk to you later. Bye now.